Reinhard Heydrich was a high-ranking SS officer as well as a principal architect of some of the most sinister policies of the Nazi era. Dubbed the Butcher of Prague, his brutal tactics terrorized an entire nation. This is the story of the shocking assassination of Reinhard Heydrich. His path to becoming one of the most feared men in the Third Reich began in Munich, where he was introduced to SS chief Heinrich Himmler by a family friend. Himmler, immediately taken with Heydrich's Aryan, blonde-haired, blue-eyed countenance, hired him on the spot. Himmler then brought Heydrich into the SS in August 1931, tasked him with developing an internal intelligence service for the Nazi Party, later known as Sicherheitsdienst, or SD. Under Heydrich's leadership, the SD became the most significant intelligence agency within the Nazi Party, and Heydrich became the chief enforcer of Nazi terror inside Germany. Beginning with a crackdown on direct political opponents of the Nazis, Heydrich widened his net over time to persecute more and more groups, including Unionists, LGBTQ+ people, Romani people, and of course, Jewish people. By 1942, it's estimated that around 4,500 Czech people had either been executed or arrested under Heydrich's command. In April 1933, Himmler, then commander of the Bavarian political police, appointed Heydrich as his deputy. Together they centralized the political police departments across Germany, laying the foundation for the Gestapo. As the head of the SD and later the Gestapo, Heydrich not only arrested all those he considered enemies of the Reich, but also often fabricated evidence to justify police and political action against those who were his supposed allies. In 1934, Heydrich helped engineer the Night of the Long Knives, a violent act of political house cleaning that both helped Hitler consolidate power and handed over to Himmler and Heydrich complete control of Germany's police force. The Night of the Long Knives was a brutal purge that targeted the leaders of the Sturmabteilung, or the SA, along with other political adversaries. The SA, a paramilitary wing of the party, had played a crucial role in Hitler's rise to power. However, its growing influence and its leader Ernst Röhm's ambitions to absorb the German army into the SA threatened the existing military hierarchy and alarmed conservative elements within the regime. Working in the shadows, Heydrich helped compile detailed dossiers on Röhm and other SA leaders, fabricating evidence of a supposed coup to persuade Hitler of the necessity of a purge. It worked. On the night of June 30, 1944, under direct orders from Hitler, SS units and the Gestapo, led by Heydrich, moved quickly. Top SA officials were arrested and executed without trial. Throughout the weekend, up to 200 people were killed, including Röhm and several of Hitler's political detractors. The purge sent a chilling message across the Nazi Party and the entire nation. Opposition to Hitler's rule would be met with deadly consequences. As Germany annexed Austria and the Sudetenland, Heydrich's task forces were also deployed there. Their mission was clear: seize key documents, establish intelligence operations, and eliminate anyone seen as an opponent to Nazi rule. In January 1939, impressed by Reinhard Heydrich's aggressive policies, Hermann Göring authorized him to devise comprehensive plans for the resolving of the Jewish question across the German Reich. And as World War II engulfed Europe, Heydrich, already notorious for his brutal tactics, had the idea to form specialized paramilitary units known as Einsatzgruppen, or task forces. Under Heydrich's direct command, these units followed the German army, targeting Polish intellectuals, artists, and community leaders to break the spirit of resistance. Simultaneously, they began the systematic concentration of Polish Jewish people. The Gestapo arrested these political opponents and, where deemed appropriate, incarcerated them in concentration camps, using the police authority granted by an order of protective custody. Within 5 months of their deployment, it's estimated that over 60,000 Polish people were ruthlessly executed. Heydrich's strategy escalated further in 1941 with the invasion of the Soviet Union. He expanded the task forces, now 4 in number, to follow the army deep into Soviet territory. Shortly after that, Heydrich's directive broadened in scope and savagery, commanding the execution of Jewish women, children, the elderly, as well as all Jewish men between 15 and 45, effectively sanctioning the genocide of entire communities. But unsurprisingly, gunning down large amounts of innocent people took a psychological toll on the task force soldiers. Reports of depression, heavy drinking, and insubordination began to surface. In response to these concerns, Heydrich and his superior, Heinrich Himmler, sought a more humane method for their soldiers to carry out the killings: the gas van. These vans, a grim precursor to the gas chambers, used the vehicle's exhaust to murder the occupants en route to mass burial sites, shielding the soldiers from the direct act of killing. The ultimate human cost of the task forces was catastrophic, with up to 800,000 people killed in a matter of months. This marked the beginning of a systematic approach to what would later become known as the Holocaust. Heydrich's strategy of genocide was further institutionalized on July 31, 1941, when Göring authorized him to formally plan the total extermination of Jewish people under German control. For nearly a decade, Heydrich had been perfecting methods to fulfill Hitler's vision of a Germany and ultimately a Europe free of those they didn't deem worthy. Initially, his strategy focused on forced emigration. Utilizing the full might of the SD and the Gestapo, Heydrich orchestrated a campaign of terror, seizing assets and arresting Jewish communities, pushing them to leave the country. With the outbreak of World War II and the subsequent closing of international borders, Heydrich's tactics had to evolve. The occupation of France briefly opened another possibility, the Madagascar Plan, which proposed deporting 4 million Jews to Madagascar. Despite initial support, the logistical challenges soon rendered the plan unfeasible. After the Madagascar Plan was scrapped for logistical reasons, Heydrich grew more aggressive in his push to answer the Jewish question. In September of the same year, Reinhard Heydrich assumed the role of Deputy Reich Protector of the Protectorate of Bohemia and Moravia, a position he would use to unleash a reign of terror on Prague and its peoples. Heydrich's regime began with the imposition of martial law. Within days of his arrival, he ordered the execution of 142 Czech leaders, intellectuals, and anyone he suspected of engaging in resistance activities. Heydrich also orchestrated a systematic suppression of Czech culture and institutions, aiming to eradicate Czech national identity. He organized the arrest of thousands, and many of those arrested were sent to concentration camps, where they faced extreme conditions and death. His brutal tactics soon earned him the chilling nickname, the Butcher of Prague. Throughout his career, Heydrich's reputation for machine-like efficiency and unflinching cruelty preceded him. Not only had he put together one of the most brutal policing organizations in modern history, he had also masterminded several of the Nazis' most insidious acts of aggression. This eventually led to him organizing the Wannsee Conference in January 1942. This conference marked a pivotal moment in the Holocaust, as Heydrich and other high-ranking Nazi officials laid out the administrative framework for what they termed the final solution to the Jewish question. Heydrich, as chief of the Reich Security Main Office, had been empowered by Hermann Göring to coordinate the logistics of the Jewish genocide. At Wannsee, Heydrich presented a meticulously detailed plan to identify, assemble, transport, and ultimately exterminate approximately 11 million Jewish people from across Europe, including those in territories not yet under German control. Under Heydrich's guidance, various governmental departments were tasked with collaborating to ensure the efficient deportation of Jewish people to ghettos and extermination camps. All the while, a small group of freedom fighters were planning Reinhard Heydrich's assassination. Heydrich often traveled from his home in the suburbs to Prague Castle, flaunting security protocols by riding in an open-top Mercedes. This routine provided the Czechoslovak resistance with an opportunity they could not miss. Josef Gabčík and Jan Kubis, two Czech operatives trained by Britain's Special Operations Executive, positioned themselves at a sharp bend on the route, known to slow down vehicles. As Heydrich's car approached, Gabčík stepped into the road, aiming his Sten submachine gun directly at Heydrich. But at the worst moment, Gabčík's gun jammed. Undeterred by the malfunction, and as Heydrich ordered his driver to halt and tried to engage the attackers himself, Kubis seized the moment to act. Kubis hurled a modified anti-tank grenade underneath the car. The explosion was not immediately fatal, but it inflicted severe injuries on Heydrich, embedding shrapnel into his back and causing severe internal damage. In a desperate attempt to capture his assailants, a wounded Heydrich drew his pistol, but both Gabčík and Kubis managed to escape the scene amidst the confusion and panic that followed. Heydrich was rushed to the hospital, but his injuries proved fatal. He succumbed to his wounds on June 4, 1942, after developing sepsis from the shrapnel that had lodged in his body. In retaliation for Heydrich's death, the Nazis unleashed a wave of terror across Bohemia and Moravia. The most horrific act of vengeance was the destruction of Legacies, a small village falsely linked to the assassins. On June 10, 1942, German forces encircled Legacies. In a display of cruelty, they executed all 173 men and boys over 15 years old. The women were deported to Ravensbrück concentration camp, where many perished. Most of the Legacies children were sent to the Chelmno extermination camp, where they were murdered. A select few, deemed racially suitable, were taken away and sent to live with German families. This act of terror was meant to serve as a grim warning to others about the consequences of resistance. Yet instead of quelling the Czech spirit, this atrocity highlighted the brutal nature of the Nazi regime, garnering sympathy and support for Czech resistance from the international community. Well, that's it. We hope you enjoyed our video. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and remember to like and subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more fascinating history content. Thanks for watching, and until next time.